Welcome. How's everyone doing? Welcome to our Section 1 Championship preview. I am your host, Frank Langella, joined with my co-host, Marsilio Langella. Mars, it is championship week. I know we had the Hudson Valley Football League Championship last week. It is championship week for Section 1 now. A ton of big matchups that we're going to be diving into a lot. We'll talk about what's going on with the show, but how's it going? How's Chad doing? I know people are going to be filtering in, but how's everyone doing?
Yeah, it's great, man. We're finally here at the championships, and this is the most exciting time of the year because we get to finally see the culmination of all these leagues and classes, and all this talent now finally at the big stage, and get to see some dreams be fulfilled, some dreams end. It's also the end of the FAM sports season too.
It is, and we want to welcome our audience to the show, and we appreciate you guys as always. As you're coming in, make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that sub button if you haven't yet already. And how the show is going to work. This is our final show. It's not the end of FAM Sports for the year. It's the final show for this season, but we will be doing some end of the year awards as well as our all-star teams. So we hope you guys stay in tune for that. But for going on in this show, and I'll have a little bit of message for our audience in just a moment. But what's going on in this show, we have a lot going on, right? Well, we're going to talk about, we have one question that was submitted that we'll address that, and we'll address any questions that you guys add in the chat as well, like we always do. We are going to be breaking down each game. Talk real quick about my preseason picks, how I did there. I make bold predictions in right before the season, see how I did on the year. I got to eat a little bit of crow, but also I nailed a couple as well. We are going to go into each game based on when the day it happens, which is Friday, and then we'll go into Saturday games. We are going to be joined by 5 athletes, one from each matchup. So first time ever, we're going to have 5 interviews go on here, get to see some of the athletes, about them, about the season, about this matchup. Really excited about that. Got to talk to some fine athletes. And then we're going to go into some film rooms. I got 5 film rooms for everyone here. We're going to talk about each matchup and then give our game picks. So that is what is on slate for this one, Mars. Jam-packed. Before we go into the games, I do want to talk about just championships overall, and I hope some of the kids get the message on, competing and just giving everything you have. One thing we'll talk about in championships before we go into the game is there has to be a winner and loser, right? So there's a lot that's going on, but before that, we do have to give one final shout out to this year's sponsor. And this year's sponsor, as we've done each week, is the Salem Ridge Construction. Do you or someone you know looking to remodel your home? Well, we have the perfect group to satisfy your needs. Salem Ridge Construction offers a wide array of remodeling services, from kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, patio and deck building, as well as new construction for residential and commercial properties. They service folks across Westchester County, Fairfield County, New York City, and Bergen County. You want your home to reflect you, and Salem Ridge Construction are the perfect partners to achieve that. For more information, visit their website that we will put in the description of this video. I want to thank our sponsor all year for assisting our group. And a special thanks, and I do see Society, what's up, Cornballs? I had a feeling we'd be joined by our friend who did say Sleepy Hollow was going to win. We both were incorrect on that end. So we were Cornballs last week. We'll see if we're Cornballs this week. But also want to I just gave a special thanks to our sponsors, but also a real special thanks to our audience and our viewers and our Patreon members. You guys are what drives us. We made this back in 2019. We started off the same group that you see here, a 2-man group, 3-man group, and we've continued to try to grow and provide you guys the teams, the programs, the players, the parents, fans, the best content we can get. And we hope that we continue to get your support. We appreciate you guys turning into the shows each week, engaging with us each week. We really appreciate our Patreon members who donate to us. You guys are our lifeblood, and we provide content for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it for football lovers, right? So that's going to be something, I just wanted to give a special thanks. And Mars, I know you have a similar sentiment that I do about our viewers, our Patreon members, the programs that engage with us, the student athletes, and everyone in between who has been a supporter for us and continues to be.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll say this, there's not a lot of shows or groups out there that do as much work as we do when it comes to these weekly shows. And I know Frank does a lot when it comes to those interviews. And reaching out to a lot of coaches, and I think that's really what kind of sets us apart. I said this a bunch of times. Back when we first started, this is our officially our 6th year. We started back in
2019.
2019 is when we first started Fam Sports, and we started from us having green screen backgrounds to us talking in the basement during the COVID year and everything, and here we are, the master of technology, and it's changed quite a bit since we first started, and we've grown, and we've made a lot of funny stuff, and a lot of things people have been giving us crow when we were wrong. But we were people who were part of Section 1, went to the Catholic League, were players in Section 1, coached in Section 1 and outside of Section 1. And we're doing this for the kids. We're making sure that they get the exposure that they deserve. And, that's a big thing that we really push for.
And I appreciate that, society. I appreciate the kind words there. But let's now go into our questions for the week. And we received one question, and it's going to be a spicy one. So I'm going to take the spicy question, Mars. And the question that we got, and we'll answer any questions that you add as the show goes along, or if you guys want to add it. But the question that we received, and I appreciate questions from our Patreon members, is who is the most disappointing team this year? So I know this is going to be a little spicy, and my answer might surprise some folks. And I know there's some, I thought about it for a while. And I know some people are going to say, yeah, Carmel had a disappointing year. Arlington having 2 wins. They went to playoffs, but had 2 wins. But to me, when I thought about it for a while, there really was only one that kind of stood out to me, and that's actually Mahopac. And I know it might be surprising. Wait, Mahopac made the playoffs. They're 5-4. But when you say disappointing, it's not who had the worst year, right? It's who didn't meet kind of the expectations that I had, or that maybe the league had, or the team had. And there's a lot that goes into that. Part of it is before the season started, right? Mahopac had 1 playoff win over the last 8 years, now 9 years. Couple that with, over the same time span, they've had an under 500 record against kind of the prominent programs in AA and A. And then couple that with some of the coaches who have left during that time, before that time, have gone on to win championships at other places, at other programs. And so, some at multiple places, right? So you couple all that together coming into this year, there was a lot riding on this year. And Mahopac was pretty loaded. I give them, they had some dudes on that team. I don't think people realize you come back with just stud running back in Maskell, your starting quarterback, a starting receiver, multiple offensive linemen, and you're probably bigger, has a size advantage over about 80% of the teams that you've played this year. So there was a lot going on. It wasn't just me talking about it in the team previews, Mars, right? I mean, they were talking about it at the league level. They were talking about it at the team, the coaches. They were talking about a deep playoff run. So losing to Harrison in that first round, and a ton of credit goes to Harrison because they definitely earned that win. But it feels like, hey, this was the moment to have that deep playoff run, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And they wouldn't even have faced Harrison if they didn't get upset by Yorktown a couple weeks prior. So, Mahopac had a loaded squad, and I think when you take away the emotion, when you take away the last names, and you look into the details, you look into the data, you look into the results, I think it's been a growing sentiment. I hear from it from kind of the community. And I just think if you look into that data and get rid of the other stuff, I think my answer is kind of true, unfortunately. And I've talked about it in the Week 8 review. I think there's some major changes needed, but that's why I'm going to leave it at that. I know it's the spicy question, but you guys come here for the real answers, right? And so we'll give it to you. What teams do you think have legit shots at winning state titles? You guys can answer after you make your picks. Great question. I wonder if, I got to tell you, I do think Ryder-Somers could either make a run. I do think even Sleepy and Westlake could definitely make a run. I feel like the hardest ones are going to be the Mamaroneck John Jay winner. I think that's going to be the hardest one. Bronxville, I also think, has a legit chance. So I think from A, B, and C, I think have real legit shot. D is always a tough for me because I'm not as familiar with the round D because it's so small. So that one's kind of thrown up in the air. But I think the winner of A, B, and C, I think they all have legit. And I probably, if I had to rank, I would say C is the top, then A, um, and then B. Thoughts, Mars?
Yeah, I
And
think
I say
the
winner of
biggest
C.
thing is
Bronxville Stud, and even Dobbs
yeah,
Ferry has a
yeah,
ton of talent. I do think C has the
yeah.
best chance.
I think the biggest thing it has to be with the competition and the size that each of these other schools have. I think if you look at B, you have a lot of really big schools in that, especially not maybe not the quarters, but you get to the semis and you get to the states. That's usually probably the biggest that I always see. I know from experience in B, I've always seen that those groupings of that ranking, the areas where it really gets tight. But I do agree. I think A, B, and C probably have the biggest chances.
Yeah,
I think I definitely could see a Sleepy Westlake because they have size and they have the athletes that
yeah,
can they have really killer speed. And I think that definitely helps a lot when you get to the bigger stages. The only downside I could say is that size could be, like I said, size, they have size, but size in the states and the semis, some schools up top up north have massive people, right? And it's kind of crazy when you look at it. But I think in my opinion, probably A has the highest chance because Somers has won a lot of those state
they're coming
titles
off the state
recently,
title.
and
Yeah,
Rye. And if you really think about it, like Somers and Rye games have always been competitive. So you always get that like bat, and it was almost like a few years ago. I think what was it, 2 years ago, where single A had the second place winner, and the section one had a run in the state tournament, and it was a Rye versus
3 years.
Somers in the
Was it 3 years?
semis,
3 years
which it
ago.
was something like that 2 or 3 years ago when they had like the semi
Yeah, yeah,
semi matchup was basically the state title
yeah.
like basically match again. So I think A has, in my opinion, has the highest chance. But I could definitely see either, like you said, C or B. That also makes sense to me.
Yeah, I just think C has the best between Bronxville and Dobbs Ferry. I think Dobbs Ferry's speed, they have some size as well, and Dobbs Ferry has a ton of athletes, right? And when you have that in those smaller leagues, you have a good chance. Bronxville obviously has the size. So I think the winner there has a really good chance. A, between Somers and Ryan, then B, because I do believe in both teams, Westlake and Sleepy, could make noise in the state tournament, the winner there. But thank you for that question. All right, with that, one thing though that I have to bring up while we have the questions up, and then we'll go right into the games, is every year, usually at this time, and we're not going to spend too much, but we do an Oracle or Dunce segment where and though I paid Patreon members know this, I give out my bold predictions for the season before the game started. And then I gave out my bold predictions September 5th of this year, where I make, a bunch of predictions that I think are going to happen by the end of the season. And my goal is to get 50% of them right, because when you're making bold predictions way ahead of time, a lot can change in those 10, 11 weeks. So I gave out 14 predictions this year, and I needed 50%, but I have to eat a little bit of crow. I did not get 50%. I needed at least 7 correct. I got 6 correct. And I'll just give you a couple of my Mars. You had the list too. Which ones do you think, just a handful, I think was the best picks and the biggest flops? And one thing I'll just say, one I'll pick, Mars. I'll pick one, you pick one, and then we'll move like the one I got right and the biggest flop that you think. And one thing I'm going to nail, I'll just say this ahead of time, my Yonkers Force people out there. I hope that they were Patreon members and they saw my picks, but I had, back in September 5th, I predicted Yonkers Force has not ended the season with 5 wins since the program was founded in 2018. I said this year Yonkers Force will break that streak and win at least 5 games. Yonkers Force won 6 games. I nailed that Yonkers Force pick, Mars.
I feel like that was a really tough one. I feel like really a good pick that you had, I just had it here, was the what was it? The defenses in A. Where you said that Rye would have the best offense and Somers have the best defense.
I did.
That's a tough thing to rank that. I think, I mean, granted, those are the two best teams generally, like we've seen consistently, that always make it to the section title, but exactly that number. And you also were really close on some of these other ones that were like, you're right there. I think the biggest struggle you had though was the HVFL. I think
I
you
did.
you were you had some big struggles there. I think you called Greeley and Tappan Z in the championship. And yeah, you just were not right on that one.
No, I think my other
So
big flop, I said that in A, the South League rankings would be Rye number 1, which was correct. Number 2 would be Eastchester. Number 3 would be Clarkstown North. And number 4 would be Harrison. Harrison was a surprise to me going up to the second seed. But what I will say, Eastchester, although didn't get the second seed, they were in the Final Four. So I got to give myself partial credit here by making it to that part. But that one definitely hurt. I also said the Final Four in B was going to be Ardsley, Westlake, Pearl River, and Sleepy Hollow. I got 3 out of 4. Sleepy Hollow, obviously. I mean, not Sleepy Hollow. I said Pelham as the 4th, and Sleepy Hollow was that 4th, obviously making it all the way to the championship. They were the big surprise to me of the entire section. They were the biggest surprise. So definitely had to eat crow. I did not make my record, so I am a dunce this year, gang, and have to eat my crow. Do I know what happened to Butterball turkeys? No, I don't think I do. If there was a Heisman for Section 1 football, which 5 players do you have as finalists? Great question. Wow. This is a really good question, Society. I think Richardson has to be in it. Richardson has to be in it. Number 1. Miller from Rye is going to be in it. This one's tough. I think Formato, the running back and linebacker from Bronxville, got to be in it. Who's the last 2, Mars?
you said, what was your list you started?
I think Lawrence has to be in it. Quarterback from John Jay. Or the running back Cal Cogni, who's running back and defensive back, 2-way player, who's a big one. And maybe Nick DiNapoli from Westlake. Those are my 5.
So can you say the 5 again, just so I can?
Yep. Braden Richardson, Sleepy, Nick DiNapoli, quarterback and defensive back, Westlake. Carson Miller, quarterback from Rye. And we're talking Heisman, right? And then 4 and 5 would be quarterback Lawrence from John Jay, and then number 4 Cal Cogni, and then I forgot who I just said on the 5th. I just lost my train of thought on the 5th. Do you have a 5th?
Trying to think the what's his name? The guy from
Formato. I'm sorry, from Bronxville. I'm sorry, Formato. Yep.
Yeah, Formato.
Thank you.
Formato.
Formato. Yeah, the running back and linebacker. Thoughts on Sal Zafudo? I liked him. I thought he had a strong game last week. He had a big run last week against Scarsdale. Not a big guy, but a shifty guy, and I think he's a nice counter to Cal Cogni's power running. Yeah, that's my thoughts there. But I appreciate the questions, and obviously not the gotcha questions that I think some of you are trying to throw on me a little bit. But appreciate your guys' questions in the chat. And obviously, guys, hit that thumbs up, hit that sub button if you haven't yet already. And we'll keep answering questions as the show goes along. But that is our question segment. Let's dive into the games, Mars. And it's our game picks. The main event, big thing to talk about, Mars, is what happened last week where we tied. So the season series is 5-3-1 that I'm leading the series. I, from the season, have won the head-to-head. So I cannot lose the head-to-head to you, Mars. But the season record, I'm at 80%. So I hit 80%. Mars is at 79% of your picks correct. So there's still a chance. You probably have to sweep it in this one to get over 80 for us to both to break it. But I have won the season series, Mars. I'm sorry that has happened to you.
That was close, man. I think I started the season, I think, was it 3-0 or something?
2-0.
And I caved.
Started up 2-0.
Yeah, 2-0. Yeah, I think I caved and I just lost like 3 in a row, and then something. Yeah, wasn't it? I lost like 5 in a row or something like that. It was crazy.
But yeah, so I won the series there. And let's dive into the games now. And we'll start on the Friday games. Let me pull up the standings actually before we get into that. So we have the schedule up on top. We'll start with the Friday games, and it's going to be the first one, which is D. And we're going to start with talk about the game overall. We'll then join into our interview, and then we'll go into a film room and then the game pick. So let's just dive in on that first one, which starts with Class D. And it's Tucko, who's 7-1 versus Haldane, that is 6-2. These two teams did not play in the regular season. And the last 2 years, the winner in the regular season won the section title matchup as well. So we don't get that indicator this time around. But as a series overall, Tucko is 25-6-1 in the series. Won both of the games last year, including the section title 28-0, where quarterback Bryce made his big return after being injured earlier in the year. And it was his coming back party, that's for sure. And I'll start with Tucko, Mars. You know, Tucko's coming into this game, I mentioned 7-1. They've had 7 wins in 3 of the last 5 years. Haldane, they're coming in with 6 wins, and they've had 6 wins in 3 of the last 4 years. So both these teams, smaller schools, have been very competitive on the football scale. And they in the BCD schedule, which they've had to play teams a lot bigger than them. But when I look at this game for Tucko offensively, they're 9th in points out of the 22 schools in BCD coming into the playoffs. Quarterback Bryce has had 4 touchdowns over the last 2 games, and he has been so important for this offense, not just with his arm, especially on the rollout game, but his legs. He is a guy who, once he gets to that second level, there's not many who can catch him. He's got a lot of speed. He's a big guy, not easy to bring down. And his combination, doing the power read, counter stuff, zone read with him, and then handing the ball off to Connolly, who's had over 100 yards rushing in 3 straight games, has been a dynamic duo, especially with that offensive line that has some good size to it. They can move people up front. Payne is another guy who has made some plays. He had 3 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown last week. But Getty is another guy who has stepped up with guys like Reyes. This is an offense that you know you're going to get a ton of running between those two, but the rollout game and the play action game out of that can attack down the field. They do a nice mix of the quick stuff, getting the hands out of Bryce quickly, and then that roll game, and that's when they attack down the field. I'm not expecting that's what they're going to run their offense with the Haldane and challenge them to, number one, can they keep Bryce in the pocket, which at times Haldane has struggled with on quarterback runs. So Bryce made a lot of plays last time they played last year. Look for that heavy dose of Bryce in this game. So that's going to be the key to me on the offensive side. Defensively for Tucko, this was a really strong defense. They were number 3 in points allowed. Very strong against the run on overall the entire season, outside of the Bronxville game. And this is a defensive front 7 that is tough. They're tough to move. Guys like Del Conte and Surlo and Baguetti and Gunther, they made plays last game. Rumbalski had 2 fumble recoveries. They swarm to the ball. They are tough to move. They swarm to the ball, and they react pretty well on outside run, counter action. And it's because they do a good job of disengaging their blockers and swarming. Again, the best defenses in high school are ones that rally, and Tuckahoe is one of them. The key is going to be for them to slow down that Haldane running game and to keep their quarterback and Palace inside the tackle box. That's going to be an important factor in this one. But I just like Tucko's an aggressive team. They like to bring their linebackers on blitzes. They're going to be very aggressive, and this is a defense that really can stop the run very well. Which then leads me to Haldane. You know, they struggled last game offensively. This is an offense that has been hit and miss at times, but they're predicated on their tempo. They like to line up very quickly to avoid you from being able to substitute, making sure you line up correctly. They like to use the tempo to out-leverage you. So this is an offense that is going to try to win with tempo. And running back Gogler leads the way with them. He has a nice mix of patience and burst to him. I really like the way he can follow his linemen and then kind of turn on and off his gears and hit the hole hard. This is a guy who runs hard. You've seen him break a lot of tackles, but I love the patience that he's shown this year, Mars. He's been really dynamic. And their quarterback, Palace, coming back has obviously been really important for this offense. It's really opened up this offense. And then getting the ball to guys like Corliss and Ruggiero, they've been playmakers. But this offensive line has its handful. So they're going to have to try to run the ball, I think, attack the outside using tempo. And Palace is really going to have to make plays with both his arm and his legs, because running the ball consistently against Tucko is a tough trick. Defensively, big surprise this year, Mars. Haldane is actually the number 1 defense out of BCD in points allowed. 5 games this year, they've allowed 18 or less points. Number 28, Phillips, has been very disruptive coming off the edge. He's going to have a really strong game kind of generating negative plays in the backfield against Connolly and Bryce. Because the linebacker and front seven really have to be cognizant of their reads, power read, zone read, anything that is involving Bryce. They really have to not allow Bryce to get to the second level. That's going to be super important this one. Mars, thoughts on this matchup? Then we'll go into our interview for this matchup, and then a film room, and then we'll make our pick.
I think the biggest thing is going to be the battle of the defenses. Whichever defense makes the least amount of mistakes is really the team that's going to win. Because both defenses are really good. Haldane has the #1 ranked defense, while Tucko has the number third ranked defense. So offensively, they just have to limit their mistakes, and that's the team that's going to win the game.
Yeah, I agree. And our interview for this matchup is one of the guys I talked about, running back and linebacker Alex Gaugler of Haldane. And I got to spend a couple minutes with him the other day talking about himself, the season, and this upcoming matchup, and I'd like you all to see. Joining us now, he is a running back and linebacker for the Haldane football program. We want to welcome to the show Alex Gaugler. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. And first things first, I got to know the way this schedule has come out this year. You guys played week 7 and then it's had this multi-week break. What has kind of been, it to me, I would be itching. I would be, sweating, ready to get out on that football field. What has it been the preparation these last 2 weeks? I'm just curious, being on this kind of delay as the playoffs has gone along.
Yeah, we've been working hard in practice, learning the game plan, watching film, all this stuff. We've been doing joint practices, which just kept us strong, kept us on our feet. We did everything in our power just to get ready for this game, and we're just ready to go. We're just ready for Friday.
I can imagine. But I want to talk about you a little bit. Last year, you were a very impactful player, especially running with some physicality. But as I watched you this year and as the season gone along, you've really gotten more explosive. I've loved the patience that you've shown running the ball as well. So you're not just running with physicality, you're running with some burst, you're running with some patience. Talk to me about what has kind of been the biggest growth for you on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, as the season has gone along.
I started watching more film. I've been looking at other players, and they kind of just showed me like what aspects of my game I can improve and what I do good at, what I do bad at, and I kind of could mix them together. Like with I could run physically, but I could also watch the gap, read it, explode right through it, and then put my head down and try and get an extra yard or two.
Absolutely. And listen, for Haldane, you guys have played this BCD schedule where you guys have had to play practically every team bigger than you. And you guys have come out really strong, 6 wins in the year heading into this game. Talk to me about your colleagues, you and your colleagues, your team. What makes this group so special on the offensive side and defensive side?
I just think the coaching staff did a really good job installing all these schemes and game plans for every week, and it really brought us together as a team and allowed us to execute every game for most part.
Defensively, you guys were the #1 defense heading into this playoffs in points allowed, which is a pretty great, to me, milestone for you guys. Talk to me about defensively, and you're a big part of that at the linebacker spot. Talk to me some of the players that have really stepped up this year and that has made your defensive group as potent as it has.
Yeah, definitely. We've had a bunch of injuries this year, which really sucked. But players like Mikey Phillips, Will Hara, Merrick Williams on the line, Nick Lamont, he's a beast. And then at the linebacker spot, me, Tomas, he's a really big part. He scans the field really well, and just being able to play with these people the whole season and just building like a tight knit kind of like bond, and like it just allows us to play so much better on the field.
Let's talk about the big rivalry. You guys see each other every year. Did not see each other in the regular season, which has been a little bit new. So coming into this, playing it for one time, what are some of the things that you see on tape that Tuckahoe does well offensively and defensively?
From what I've seen, they're a really well coached, disciplined team. it's going to be a tough game, but we're ready to leave everything out on the field and just try and win. We've been waiting for this for a while.
That might lead to my last question. What can you guys do this weekend to give yourself the best opportunity to win and become champions?
Uh, right now, as of now, I just think we have to believe. We have to show that, prove to ourselves and prove to everyone that we can do it. We've been putting a lot of work these last couple of weeks, and we know the work we put in is good work, and we know we can fight strong and come out on top.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show, Alex, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the show, Alex. A very impressive football player, important two-way player. Going to have to be key in this one. Mars, we're going to go now to our film room for this session. And, I want to focus in on this Tucko run defense. I was talking about the entire preview and this Haldane offense. So let me pull up Huddle, guys. There we go, right there. All right. So I mentioned again, this Mars talked about both defenses, and to me, I'm looking at this matchup between this run defense and Haldane's offense overall. First things first, this Tucko defense is very aggressive. I really like the way they could stop the run multiple ways, and they like to be aggressive. You could see they're in the spread here, 2x2, and Tucko's going to give you 5 guys on the line and send the linebacker. I mean, they're not afraid, right? They'll challenge your wide receivers. They want to stop the run. They want to create negative plays, and you're going to see they're going to bring the aggressiveness. They're going to try to fake to the running back. Quarterback's going to pull, but there's so much pressure backside, right? Really good job at the play side here. You're not getting a ton of push. I mentioned they're hard to move, and then the aggressiveness of these linebackers and defensive backs making plays. They can generate a lot of negative plays. Look at them swarm to the ball here and multiple hats to the ball. Tucko's really strong at doing this. So trying to run inside, trying to spread you out to run, Tucko shows that they can defend that very well. Then teams try to attack it to the outside, right? They'll give you condensed formations. You can see they got a tight end, they got a wing, they have an extra fullback here. They're trying to bring this defense close together, right? They're difficult to move, and let's go to the outside on them. Again, Tucko shows good discipline. They don't just swarm to the ball, they do have really good gap discipline. Look at the outside guy right there. Look at him set the edge, forcing the running back to bounce it back inside. And again, I mentioned, look at the hats to the ball. Tucko does a really good job. Gap, discipline, forcing the play inside, and guys running inside out. Guys disengaging their blockers, really getting after them. Again, swarming to the football. Look at the hats, all the hats near the ball. That's what makes really good defenses in high school. There's so many different schemes. One thing that they all have in common, they swarm to the ball. What about counteraction? Right, this is another game against another very good team in Dobbs Ferry. Right, you're going to see they're going to try to motion. They're going to try to fool around with the defense's eyes and then twist back. I love this kind of play. Quarterback opens one way, fakes it, and then turns back around. They're going to pull a guard backside. Twist play, again, trying to catch the defense, snapping. It looks like it's pretty open here, right, on that first initial play. But when he cuts back, look at this defense swarm. Really good job by the linebacker disengaging the blocker. Look at the hats then swarm back, play side, getting off that trap block. Again, very difficult to move at the point of attack and even on counter stuff. These guys swarm to the football. That's what makes this defense tough to run against. Which leads me to Haldane's offense. And they're an important part of their game is tempo. I mentioned up tempo, but also running the football with Gogler. He's going to be really important in this one. Very patient, follows his blockers well. You see they got a tight end wing to the right. They're going to run to him, pulling a couple guards. Right, they got to get movement at the point of attack. But again, I love the patience that Alex shows here. Again, he could probably run to the outside real quickly, but look at him kind of sit back behind those guards. And once the lane opens up, that's when he hits that gear. Boom. It's going to explode up that gut right there. Look at that power generating 11 yards. Right? And this was on a 4th down. That's how much confidence they have. They'll run the ball on 4th and long because they love his patience. They love his burst. They love his ability to make big plays. He's going to be so important here. But running against that tough defense, they're going to need plays in the passing game. And that's where Palace comes in. His return has been really important for this offense, not just because he's starting quarterback, but his ability to run and throw the football, making them more explosive. I mentioned Tucko's very aggressive. They'll bring guys up near the line of scrimmage. They'll blitz their linebackers. Palace is going to roll to his right. You're going to see this combination right here. But his ability to throw down the field, that's what opened things up for Haldane's offense. Set his feet. He sees it. Makes a nice throw, and I love this catch. Look at it, challenge the defender right there. Go up and get it. is going to be so important. They got to keep Tucko's defense honest in this one, Mars. If they do not, just running the ball against them, I think is going to be a tough trick. Mars, first game pick. Who do you got winning? Tucko and Haldane, and why?
I mean, this is tough. These two teams are very, very evenly matched. They have a lot of similar traits to them. I think the biggest thing I look at is their defense. Both defenses have been really tough. The front seven is the best units on these defenses, and they've been really making it difficult for teams to run the ball. I will say, when I was making my pick, I think I was sticking closer to that defense, and I'm going to go with Haldane. I think they have the number one defense, and they've been playing against all these different variable teams, just like Tucko has. But I think Haldane having that best defense, and they've been in 5 games have allowed 18 or less points. And I think that is one of the things that I looked at that kind of gives me that little bit of that push ahead of them. I think it's going to be a really close game. It really does depend on whether this defense can slow down the run for Tuckahoe. They have a lot of playmakers, but I think that Haldane is going to be able to do that, and they're going to win this game.
I'm going to go with Tucko. I just love the way, and outside the Bronxville game, Tucko's defense was up there as a top 3 defense. And their ability to run the ball with both Connolly and Bryce, to me, is a big factor in this one. I just think Tucko's got a little too much weapons that Haldane is going to have an issue defending on the defensive end. And then offensively, if they can't run the ball consistently, can they make enough plays down the field? Tucko does a good job of generating pressure. I think it's going to cause some havoc, maybe some potential turnovers. I think you're going to see Tucko win this game. All right, let's move to our next matchup. Obviously, one of the big heavyweights is in Class A. The number 1 seed Somers, 8-2 versus number 1 seed Rye, that is 10-0. These two teams obviously played all the way back in week 1, where Rye won 17-7. But Somers is 9-6 in this series since 2004, and they won last year's section title matchup 35-21. Looking at these two teams, Mars, this is obviously a heavyweight. This is a real heavyweight fight, a kind of growing rivalry that we have seen between these two teams for a while now. And let's start with Somers. Last week they won 28-14 versus Harrison. The previous time they won 35-7 versus Clarkstown North in the beginning quarterfinals, and they have won 8 straight since starting the year 0-2. Offensively, they have scored at least 3 touchdowns in each playoff game, and it starts with the run game. They can run out of the spread. They ran under with tight ends. They run with their quarterback in Iglesias, running backs in Balancia and Abruzzi, Mitchell. And the key factor is I think they've been running extremely hard, but also this offensive line and tight end group has done a really good job of moving people at the point of attack. So that combination between the running backs kind of hitting the hole a little bit harder as the season gone along, making people miss at the point of attack a little bit more often, and this offensive line really moving people, that has opened this offense up. And I think against Rye, you're going to see Somers. They're going to get press man. They saw it in the first matchup. They had a couple big drops at moments, right? But the big issue that Somers really struggled with the first time they played was running the ball effectively. Another question I have is how they're going to get Palazzolo involved, right? And a lot of times you see, you're going to get bracketed situations. It's going to be very rarely that they're going to go man coverage on him outside of the occasional time. But are you going to see more of him in the slot? They put him in the slot. Are you going to see him motion him? Are you going to see him put him in the backfield? Right? They did some interesting things with Palazzolo last year in the section title game, which caused some issues on trying to bracket him. So that's going to be, to me, a real interesting one. But I'd love to see them put him in the slot, motion him, give him jet sweeps, give him some quick throws out of the backfield. Something that will make it difficult to get a guy right in his face. He's going to get one and a safety over the top. You get that kind of movement. Just get Palazzolo's hands on the ball and force Rye to tackle him in space, right? And then obviously when you get those even numbers or light boxes, you have to be able to run the ball downhill. That's what Somers did in the second half of section title last year, which ended up the reason why they won, is their ability to run when the boxes are even or light. And that's going to be the key one in this one for me offensively. Defensively, this is the number 1 defense coming into the playoffs. Right, their first playoff game, they were absolutely dominant. The last game versus Harrison, they gave up some big pass plays and some quarterback scrambles. And that's going to be, the kind of the big red flag here is the quarterback scrambles because Miller's really good at that. And so they, that hurt them in the first Rye game. So it's going to be so important. They put a lot on their linebackers to cover a ton of space and coverage, and also kind of keep the quarterback in the box because they trust their front four can get home. But if they can't get home, that's going to be the big question here, right? I love this defense. I know, they forced 3 interceptions last week, 1 for a touchdown. Defensive back Whipple had 2 picks. Jimenez had an INT. The last time they played right, they gave up 400 yards of offense, Mars, but only 2 offensive touchdowns. They also forced an interception. So that front 7 is led by guys like Faulkner and linebacker Kennedy is one of the best linebackers in the league. Decker has also made some plays, but they have to be very keen on, again, you can't defend all these receivers. You could do the best. They're going to mix between cover 3, cover 1. I'm interested to see how they're going to mix up the coverages here, but they got to get home in the front 7. That's going to be the important thing, and to keep Miller in the pocket. They cannot allow Miller, who had over 100 yards rushing last time, to have over 100 yards rushing in this time again, because that's going to be really important for them to force other guys to make big plays outside of Schumacher and Miller, which there was a little bit too much of that last time they played. Which leads me down to Rye. Mars, they won 36-22 versus Eastchester, won 44-19 versus Brewster. This is the number 1 offense. So we're getting a number 1 defense versus the number 1 offense coming into. Miller had over 300 yards in back-to-back weeks and 7 total touchdowns in the playoffs. Last week, he made big plays running the ball. But he has had a turnover in each playoff game. So that's going to be an important thing. When games get tight, that turnover can be the big difference. Sometimes I feel he kind of just forces it when it's not there. And I love the aggressiveness that he plays with, right? Trying to attack down the field. Believes that he can make all the throws, which I love that. I love that confidence. But there's some times that you need to know when to live for another down, right? So against Somers, you're going to get some man coverage, press man. You're going to get cover 3. So last time they played them, they won by attacking down the field and winning with crossers, right? Getting these linebackers in a tough situation. Do they bail out to get in coverage? Do they stay close for the quarterback, right? They're putting the linebackers in conflict so they can attack down the field. As long as Miller can hold those safeties, hold those corners, don't reveal where he's going with right out of the gate. That mixture was pretty good for them. But I'm interested to see, Mars, because we know about their stud receivers. You got Miller, you got Schumacher, Lewis, Strazzini, Fenton made plays throughout the year. Can they run the ball? Run the ball as effectively as they did last time. I mean, it was a lot of Miller in the first matchup, but can a guy like Garnett, can he get going? Because I love Rye's offense, Mars, when they can run the ball, get these condensed formations, and throw out of it. That play action game is so tough for a defense to defend because you have to respect the run, and it puts your corners or safeties on an island against these stud receivers. And that's where those big plays down the field really open up. And so I'm interested to see, can they run the ball against a really tough front 7 like they did the first time is going to be a big question. Defensively, they've given up some big pass plays, Mars, the last couple weeks. Last week, they did give up a lot of rush yards and condensed formations, running downhill with a big quarterback in Burbridge. Now, Somers has some tough runners like Iglesias, but not as big as Burbridge running the ball from Eastchester. But they have to be tougher in the front 7, right? Because Somers has shown that they can run the ball effectively these last playoff runs. And you can imagine if you're going to give them light boxes, they're going to run it and challenge you to see if you can stop them. But this defense, guys like Strazzini and Steinman, Anderson, Brady, Levine, Garnett, they're tough. They're tough, but they are going to bring a lot of pressure. They're going to have a ton of guys near the line of scrimmage, and they'll put their defensive backs on an island at times. So they got to get home, right? So that's going to be such an interesting matchup between those two. I saw Miller and Schumacher playing some defensive back last couple weeks. They had a couple INTs last week. Mars, it feels like a Godzilla versus King Kong matchup here. Thoughts on the matchup, then we'll go to our interview and then some film room.
I mean, I always say this. I feel like I've been saying this every year. It's like it's really a battle of the Titans. And I said this early in the season, and that game proved to be a battle of the Titans. And it's basically the same thing again, right? You're having these two giant programs, and I say giant meaning that they've always been successful. Are going to be battling each other in the section title yet again. And you have a lot of talent on both of these teams. The question is going to be which guys show up the most, who makes the least amount of mistakes. And I think that is the little things. Last year, even thinking about last year's game, the amount of fumbles. I think Rye had 5 or 6 fumbles in that game. It was like
not that many. I think it was 3 turnovers. They had a pick 6. They had a fumble in the second half, which was killer. Yeah.
There was 5 fumbles, but they didn't lose all of them.
Yeah.
Right? That was like they kept fumbling the ball and stuff. So it was like little mistakes like that will definitely change the tide of the game. So I wanted to see which team will make the least amount of mistakes in this game.
Absolutely. And for our interview in this matchup, we're looking at one of the stars on the defensive side, and that is linebacker and tight end Brett Kennedy from Somers. I got to speak with him for a few minutes, talk about the season, talk about this upcoming matchup, and I'd like you all to see. Joining us now, he is the linebacker and tight end for the Somers football program, one of the main leaders for the football program. Welcome to the show, Brett Kennedy. How's it going, Brett?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And first things first, I got to ask you, you guys have made it back to the championship. You're one of the leaders of the team, but things started off slow. You guys played Iona Prep, one of the top programs in the state, then Rye, the team you're playing this weekend. Start off 0-2. Explain to the audience, before rattling off 8 wins in a row, what was kind of the conversation in the locker room that you can share with us? What was the conversation that was being had between you guys, the players, the coaches, that you could share with us, and what kind of turned things around for you?
I don't think we ever really got too down after losing those games. Obviously, two of the best teams in all of New York. And, I think we just had to work on some of our practice habits, making sure that we're locked in for each and every Friday. And I think that's something that definitely changed. And, as you could see, winning 8 in a row, like the results kind of speak for themselves there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big reasons is defensively. I mean, you guys coming into this game and coming into the playoffs, the number one defense in points allowed in A. You guys have been consistent all year. You're one of the leaders on that. One of the big reasons why. Talk to me about what makes this defense special. What is some of the people that have really stepped up this year? What can you share about your defense?
I think one of the main parts is obviously the D line. Jaron Faulkner, Hudson Ruby, Ben Brennickmeyer, Lorenzo D'Ambrosio, Chris Decker, they're all guys who have just been, really solid since the start of the year. And, we've had a lot of new guys in the secondary, but I think Jackson Whipple, Dylan Jimenez, two people who have really stepped up, Gavin Kelly, I think we're just kind of like forming into one like unit, and it's definitely shown that our defense has improved each week.
Now, offensively, I thought one of the big things I see from you guys is improvement on the running game. That was one thing that it started off the season not as hot, but has gotten better as the season's gone along. Talk to me, what has kind of been the biggest change in the running game? Is it just better execution? Is it just staying on block? What has kind of been the biggest improvement as the season has gone along offensively?
I think a big part is just limiting the mental mistakes, make sure we're blocking the schemes correctly. And then also getting Nate Mitchell back fully healthy was big for us. And then two young running backs in Luke Balancia and Jaden Abruzzi, who have really just like kind of been put on the map in the last couple weeks. And so, I think we've just done a really good job of blocking and, having the running backs run really hard.
Now let's talk about the upcoming matchup. And before we talk kind of X's and O's about Rye, one thing that was very interesting, very different from when I played football, was, you're not just adversaries that you're playing with guys like, Miller and Strazzini, but you guys actually are teammates on the Lax front, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, that sounds like a loaded Lax team with you and Dean and et cetera. Talk to me about that dynamic. What is the relationship there? Not just being competitors, but teammates. Very different when I was playing. There's a lot more barriers, but now things are a little bit more open. Can you talk to me a little bit about kind of your relationship, the competitiveness between you guys? What can you share with us?
It's definitely really fun, playing with a couple of those guys during the summer. You're on the same team, and then all of a sudden in the fall you're playing against each other. And they're all very competitive kids, so it's always fun playing against them. Definitely some really good players in there, and so it's always just fun playing against them, and then also playing with them in the summer.
Yeah, I can imagine. But let's talk about that team in Rye. You played them earlier in the year. Now you go into this game. What have you seen, not just from your first experience playing with them, but on tape? What do they do well offensively, that you can share with us that you see on tape?
The thing that stands out, I think, is Carson Miller's ability to, both throw the football and run the football. Definitely really good at escaping pressure and then, just tucking it and running and picking up any yards that he can. And, obviously Henry Shoemaker is a really talented receiver. So they're just a talented offense as a whole.
Last question I have for you, Brett. What can you guys do to give yourself the best opportunity to win and be champions once again?
I just think we got to go out there and be confident. We can't really get tense up and be nervous for this game. We just got to go in and do what we've been doing the past couple weeks and, just go in really confident.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show, Brett, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining the show, Brett. Another really important player on both sides. I know tight end doesn't get a lot of love, especially when you're blocking a lot. So important in the run game and at the linebacker spot. Just defending the pass, stopping the run. Brett is one of the best in the league. But Mars, let's move to our film room for this matchup, and then we're going to pick the game. And one thing I want to focus on is this Somers offense that has kind of been growing as the time went along. I'll look at this offense, see some things that they've improved on, and also some opportunities that they saw last time they played Rye. And on Rye's side, the pass attack, their pass attack versus Somers last time, and what you might see a repeat this time around. So let me pull into our film room here, and then we're going to make the big pick. But first things first, again, just focusing on Somers to start off. And the big thing I wanted to talk, I mentioned in our preview here, is what are they going to do with Palazzolo, right? A big question here. They do a really good job of trying to move him around, and I think you're going to see a lot of that in this game as well. Because wherever you put Palazzolo, you're going to notice a trend, right? Most of the time, you're going to see one guy in his face and a safety over the top, right? Because he's obviously very dynamic. So throwing it to him in these kind of situations are not always super easy, right? But there's ways you can get around it, and that's by motioning him, right? Maybe even getting him out of the backfield. And in this particular situation, Somers is actually going to motion him, hand him to the ball. Yeah, that's even great, right? That's much easier than throwing, right? Just hand it to him, right? Give him the ball, get some good blocking out on the edge, and force the defense to block a dynamic player like Palazzolo in space. And Somers does a good job here. Look at the blocking here. Look at the movement at the point of attack, body on a body, and now force these one-on-one matchups. And most times, Palazzolo is going to win that, right? You get him, makes that safety miss, uses that speed, that's a touchdown. Like moments like that make it easy to get Palazzolo the ball. And I'm expecting to see that, hey, if you're going to bracket him, we'll move him around. We'll motion him around because they got to get him some early touches. But another thing that was so important and why Somers' offense, in my opinion, has really grown as the year's gone, again, they come out with the tight ends. They got 2 tight ends, 2 flankers. You can see Palazzolo here. So the safeties definitely going to come and cheat over. And when you get this kind of matchup here, you're going to get a light boxes. Yeah, they got 8 in the box, but including Somers' quarterback, who's very good at running the football and has been used in the running game, you have 9. You outnumber the defense in the box. So you got to be able to run the ball against these, what they quote-unquote lighter boxes. And Somers, during this run, has proven they can. This offensive line does a good job at blocking. You're going to get a loop around here, body on a body, and allow your running back to make a play. And he hands it right in here. And this is what's been really important too. These running backs, one-on-one. You got a body on a body, running backs one-on-one with the safety. The Somers running backs have been making people miss. And there he does right there. Look at that block down the field at the wide receiver spot. Love that. Big play. That's what's been going on. That's what's been improving in the run game for Somers. Which then leads me to what's going to happen in the passing game. We mentioned Palazzolo. The last time they played Rye, listen, Rye's going to challenge your receivers. There are going to be times you're going to get press man. Again, focus on one of their big playmakers here in the backfield. They're going to motion him out to the left, and that's going to draw attention. Look, you got the safety coming over, outside linebacker's going to cheat, which shows you're going to get some man coverage at times. Look at the bottom of the screen. This is man-to-man press, right? So you're going to get opportunities down the field. Last time they played, they had a couple big drops down the field, but this is one of the examples where they hit. Winning that one-on-one battle, good protection up front, nice base here, and look at the ball delivery. Beautiful. Again, Somers is going to get these opportunities, especially if they move around Palazzolo, around whether it's in motion out of the backfield or in the slot. He's going to draw so much attention. It's going to get man coverage on other players. Which now leads me to Rye. I mean, Rye attacked Somers a couple different ways. One thing, they'll spread you out, right? They're going to spread you out. They've done this all year. And if Somers is going to come out in some cover 3 concepts, they're going to attack you 2 ways, right? They're going to attack you down the field. And you can see, you got the outside corners, a deep outside third, this middle safety. You got these linebackers going to be bailing out. These outside linebackers have got this curl to the flats. And they attack down the field. But the big thing is eyeing this middle safety. So one thing that Miller does a pretty good job on is he's going to try to dictate this safety. You see the safety's hips open up right away towards the trip side. And because of that, he's going to take himself out of the play. He's going to attack this backside post. But the really important part is to keep this safety in the middle or keep him cheating to a certain side and attack backside. Right? You don't want to throw it too early where the safety can adjust. He does a good job with the safety's hips. He's going to attack the other way. Look at that delivery. Beautiful. Right? So if cover 3, they can attack down the field over the middle depending on where that safety's leveraging. But then another way is crossers. Look at these receivers. Now they're not spread so much. Now they're tighter to the line of scrimmage. So they're going to try to put these linebackers in conflict. Right? And that's getting these drags. You're going to have these two guys go out deep, and then these two inside receivers, or in this outside receiver coming underneath, and they're going to put these two linebackers in conflict. Right? These linebackers are very active in the passing game, and they do that because they trust that their front four can get to the quarterback. So they bail out here. They're testing the communication. You can see it's there. It's open, that underneath track, right? Because they do a good job of kind of setting this natural pick. But Miller going to use his legs to buy himself some time. Look at him step up, which now this forcing this linebacker. Oh, Miller's running. He steps up. He's going to leave his man. And now look how open he is. Leads to a big play. Again, Miller's ability, not just on that first read, but his ability to buy time allows receivers to get even more open. Putting these linebackers in conflict is obviously going to be a big test this week as well. But I love this part of Rye's game. Look at this condensed formation. 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, and when they can run the ball, they put your defense in a bind. But you got to have guys in the box protecting against the run, and that's what they're going to give you. They're going to fake a power play right here, and they're going to throw out of it. Because you got these safeties in the middle of the field right on the hash. There's no one to the outside. The corner's on an island. So you get a good fake here. You get good protection. It's one-on-one pretty much. And Miller, he can deliver that. Look at the throw right here. Great route, beautiful ball, and that was one of the big touchdowns that sealed the game last time they played. Mars, who's going to win the Battle of the Titans? Somers or Rye, and why?
I mean, this is the game that a lot of people have been waiting for. I think a lot of college scouts are watching this game, and they're itching to see the top competition and they battling yet again. I feel like this has been a kind of reoccurring movie that I've seen, the sequel of the sequel of the sequel. And, I got to give a lot of credit to the Somers athletes. They have pulled themselves from, fighting the 2 top teams in like Brett said earlier, in New York State, essentially, and won 8 straight. Right. And I said that, I kept saying it throughout the year. Ever since they played Mahopac, I feel like they kind of woke up. They said, hey, you know what? We're better than this. And they just started kind of beating up teams as they progressed through. And Rye has just been lights out since day one. Right. Granted, the Somers and Rye game was a battle, but they have been scoring a boatload of points every single game, and their athletes have been stepping up big time. Guys like Miller, who I've been talking and raving about ever since he started quarterback, and that he has been able to throw all across the field, putting up Madden numbers. And I think that's something that should be kind of recognized as what he's been able to do. And I'm going to go with Rye. I think Rye is going to pull off the big win here, mainly because of the fact that Somers' defense is a number 1 in A, right? And I think that's the key thing. But I do believe that their big weakness, or the weakness that they showed, was when they play against dynamic quarterbacks that can run and scramble and make the big throws down the field, and Miller can do that. I think their athletes match up pretty well defensively against Rye's offense, but I do think the X factor is Miller. I think he is the guy that is a big playmaker for Rye, and when he starts moving outside the pocket and he starts scrambling and gets some yards, it's hard to account for that. Especially when they start spreading out these formations, and now you're going to have a quarterback spy on him at all times, right? That's going to be something that I think Rye will try to pull off, and I think they will just enough to win this game.
Before the year started, Mars, if you went into one of my preseason predictions, what was it? It was I predicted that the A matchup in the championship would beat Somers and Rye. And in my prediction, I also said Somers would win. So am I going to go against my preseason pick? This one was really tough for me because, again, it's hard to, number 1, beat a team twice, and number 2, beat the number 1 defense twice, and Somers has that. I love that they have playmakers on each side. We saw like Whipple and Jimenez make plays in the secondary last time. Gavin Kelly had a pick against Rye last matchup, and we've seen Rye turn the ball over in each playoff so far. The big X factor to me is Somers' ability to run. Can they run the ball against these even or lighter boxes is going to be key. They could not do it consistently against Rye last time. Can they do it this time? That's going to be the big question. The other factor to me, you mentioned Miller. Yes, that's obviously a huge one, but we all know Miller. To me, the question is, can Garnett and some of these running backs from Rye get going in the running game against a tough Somers front 7? I think this is going to be a really great game. I think it's going to be a close one for a majority of it. Probably even, probably start with some fireworks right out of the gate, but then start, as the defenses get accustomed to each other, slow it down. But I'm going to go against my gut. I am going to go against my preseason pick and go with Rye. I agree with you. I feel like this is the moment for Rye. They need to win. Both teams obviously need to win, but this feels like the opportunity for Rye to be the undisputed champion this year. You win that early matchup and you lose this, it means nothing, right? So this feels like that opportunity for Rye. I'm going to go with Rye to win a very close game. I might regret it going against my preseason pick. It's hard to pick against Godzilla, but I am going to go with Rye to win the game. All right, Mars, let's go to our next one. And appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, hit that sub button if you haven't already. We have been delivering you some interviews, some film room, some big picks. And let's go to the next matchup, which is the C matchup. And the number 1 seed, Bronxville, who's 8-0, versus the number 2 seed, Dobbs Ferry, who is 7-2. These two teams did not play each other in the regular season. Historically, Dobbs Ferry is 11-6 in this series since 2004. They have not played since 2023. Last time they played, Bronxville won in 2023. And both these teams coming into this. Bronxville, they won 48-7 versus Putt Valley. Had a bye week in the quarterfinals. For Dobbs Ferry, they won 47-20 versus Valhalla. And the week prior to that, won 40-7 versus Woodlands. And let's start with Bronxville, Mars. They came into the playoffs with the number 1 offense out of the BCD schools. They have scored over 40 points in 6 straight games. And it is through, in my opinion, through physicality. They have a physical offensive line and tight end and fullback group. Will give you plenty of condensed formations with their tight ends and fullbacks, and they love to run downhill and run outside with those condensed formations. And Formato has been an absolute stud this year. 3 touchdowns last week. 2 of them were punt returns, and he's been an absolute workhorse. He gets 20-plus carries a game, multiple 200-yard game performances. But quarterback McMurray has been a really nice combination with him. He's been really good down the stretch, throwing the ball down the field. Had a passing touchdown last week, and a couple of receivers who have stepped up throughout the year, and Freeman, Moore, Heathwood. So this is an offense that they run the ball with physicality. They'll run with the running back, they'll run with the quarterback, and then attack down the field, throwing the football. And it's been really potent. But this is probably the best offensive line, in my opinion, out of the small schools that Bronxville has. And Dobbs Ferry last week struggled on some of these condensed formations and running off tackles. So that's obviously going to be something Bronxville is going to be testing. Defensively, they're a good defense too. This is the number 4 defense in points allowed coming to the playoffs. Had 2 defensive touchdowns last week by Dolan, and they're tough to run against. But the big question that I have is Dobbs Ferry has a lot of speed. They have to keep Dobbs Ferry within the tackle box. That's going to be so important. And these defensive backs' eyes are going to really be tested because, again, you're going to run a lot of man coverage versus Dobbs Ferry. Their play action game has been really potent. So I'm interested to see how this defensive front 7 keeps funnels everything between the tackle box and how disciplined this secondary can be because they got playmakers at each level. On the defensive line with Estrada and Moore, linebackers and Malloy and Freeman and Formato, and a secondary that has forced turnovers. Then it leads me to Dobbs Ferry. Offense, this team's got offense. Number 3 offense in points scored. It's going to be tough to run between the tackle box with O'Connor, but O'Connor's a tough runner, so he'll have some moments. I'm interested to see some of their counter stuff, maybe some twist stuff, some counter action to see if they can try to catch Bronxville over pursuing. But it all starts to me with Kearns. He is a stud. 5-9 passing, 101 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Also had over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And they got some of those backs that they love giving you those condensed formations to run outside. And guys like Smith and Mole who have 6 touchdowns in the playoffs so far, Mars. All that, try to run, get outside, play action, and then throwing over the top to guys like Ravage is going to be super important. But defensively, struggled on the outside run against condensed formations, Mars. That is going right into Bronxville's wheelhouse. Can they hold up in the front 7? Big question coming into this matchup. If they can, they have the offense that can run with anybody. But it's going to be, can they get more possessions, right? If Bronxville's holding the ball the entire game, that's going to be a big problem. Thoughts on this matchup, and then we'll go to our interview and then film room.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be really interesting, especially with Bronxville having the size that they do. Their offense has been phenomenal, right? Scored 40 points in 6 straight games. But, Dobbs Ferry has battled. Offensively, they can score with just about anybody. So the question is going to be, how do they react to this really strong front that Bronxville has? And that's going to be the big key feature that I'm looking at here.
And for our interview for this matchup, we're going to be looking at one of the key cogs on the Bronxville side, and that is Walker Moore, tight end and defensive end for Bronxville. Got to speak with him for a few minutes about the season and the upcoming matchup, and I'd like you all to see. Joining us now, he is a tight end, wide receiver, and defensive end for the Bronxville football program. Want to welcome to the show Walker Moore. Welcome, Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And first things first, Walker, I want to talk about you. Coming in from last year, you see the size. I love your ability of blocking at the tight end spot. I made a couple big plays out of play action, but your growth from last year to this year, being a more impactful two-way player, stretching down the field. What has kind of been some of the biggest growth that you felt from last year to this year that's made you a more impactful player on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate that. But second of all, definitely, I've grown in size. This whole summer I was in the weight room, camps, eating a lot, thanks to my mother. But I also focused on my speed too. I had a speed coach for a while, my wide receiver coach too. But it's just kind of a culmination of all the things that my coaches have really taught me. Hard work. Patsy's been a stickler. He's always been there with me, and he's definitely helped me in this process. Definitely.
Now, looking at the team this year, I mean, you guys have been one of the most quietest, dominant teams as the season has gone along. And let's start on the offensive end. Like, what has been talk to me about your offense. What makes that group special? I mean, we could see all the points, but you guys do it with a physical nature to yourselves. What has kind of made the group special and unique that you can share about your offense? And then we'll go to defense.
Yeah, so I think it's for both sides of the ball, it's our not only our mentality but also our togetherness. I know as being the captain, you kind of sense that from a team. You can tell if you have everyone engaged and locked in. But I don't. This year is really special. We have a togetherness that really helps us on the field, and you can see it. Helping blocks and communicating and all that kind of stuff. It's super vital, and it's really helped us along the way.
A similar question I have for you guys defensively. You guys are tough to run against. I mean,
Mm.
talk to me about you're obviously a big part of that on that D line, but talk to me about some of the other guys on the defensive line and linebacker crew that has made that made this group really strong as the season's gone along.
Yeah, well, obviously we have Harry Estrada. He's a big part of our defense. But as for our linebackers, Will Malloy and Anton, they're really holding it down. And a big part of our defense, thanks to Vic, has been really our mindset, right? Not going for stats or, the big name in the paper, but really doing our quote unquote 111th. And that's really helped us kind of focus on each matchup individually and stay locked in and stay humble.
Now let's talk about this upcoming matchup. I mean, you're playing a Dobbs Ferry team, has a lot of firepower, right? And so, I want to ask you kind of on both sides of the ball, what you see on tape, what makes Dobbs Ferry unique offensively, and what do they do well defensively that we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, well, I mean, their ability to go week in and week out, their offense is very well developed. Our coaches have harked that to us that we've, practiced all week that they have a very strong offense and not to take them lightly. And I think that you know the running game obviously is a big factor, but also their passing game too is a really big deal. And yeah, I'm super excited to see them. But as for defensively, they play really well. Obviously, it translates from offense. They're a really physical team, really strong team, and I'm really excited to play this team. This is a very good team, and been looking forward to this since last year, obviously with the heartbreaking loss. So yeah.
Well, I got the last question for you, Walker. It's always the hardest one. What can you guys do this weekend to give yourself the best opportunity to become champions?
I think just staying locked in all week. It's definitely the cold. It's going to be a different environment. We haven't really felt that yet, but I'm very excited to see this team and how we come through and battle with this Dobbs Ferry team.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show, Walker, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Walker, for joining the show. Mars, now we're going to our film room. And in this film session, I want to look at this Bronxville run defense. I talked about it, really strong against running, especially in between the tackle box. But they do a good job. They're just really tough to move, and I'll show that in the film room. And also talk about Dobbs Ferry outside run and play action game. That's going to be so important in this matchup. So let me pull that one up. Again, who doesn't love a little bit of film, huh? But again, I just want to start off talking about Bronxville. and their run defense. And they got strength at each level, especially in that front seven. They are tough to move, and they swarm to the football. Again, I talk about it. You hear me repeat it. The best defenses are guys who can get multiple hats to the ball. And you can see they come in with these condensed formations. You're going to get 5 guys up on the line of scrimmage who are big, physical, and tough to move. And these linebackers can really attack. And so you see them 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. They're going to run option here, right? As the offense goes, they're going to run option to the left. It all starts with the fullback. But I just want you to watch the front. Watch the front as this ball gets snapped. And you see, I drew a line here. There is no movement. They're actually getting penetration. Most of the time, you want to see the line start on the other end, but look at them swarm to the ball. Look at the guys at the point of attack. They are not being moved at all. They're actually generating penetration. You have seen this all year long. It's like running into a brick wall, and it allows these linebackers to run free, and they can make plays. But again, starts in that front seven, starts on that line. They are tough to move. And let me go again. This is against one of the best teams with one of the best offensive lines in Sleepy Hollow. You can see, again, they got multiple guys near the line of scrimmage. They're bringing out a tight end, and they're going to try to run weak on this play. Right? They're going to try to run weak. Okay, let's run away from the strength. We'll run to the weak side. We'll try to get some movement at the point of attack, some guys pulling some good angles. And again, as this play develops, you're going to see it starts off looking like it's open. Right? There's a good job right there. Nice kick out, head on the inside. You can see that block coming up to the second level. But again, these guys do a really good job of swarming to the ball. Something that looks open initially, but they do a really good job of disengaging tackles and swarming. And look at this thing close. That's just, again, wide open, but what a great job disengaging. Look and see the strength there. And again, 3 hats to the ball right there on a play that looked wide open. Swarming. Love it. One more time. Okay, let's over. We got trips here. All right, let's out leverage them. We're going to run speed option in that direction. Right? Try to use our speed. Okay, it's tough to move them at the point of attack. Let's run around them. Right? But again, these guys swarm. Look at this defense. Again, they got caught inside a little bit. Watch this linebacker fight to get back to the outside. Look at the great job of leverage on the outside, not allowing him to get to the outside here. Look at this. Look at the hats. Multiple guys to the ball. Great job of having a body on a body. Multiple guys, even if he pitched it, were in the way. This defense is tough to run against. Now let's go to Dobbs Ferry, man. And they got speed. And I love how they use their condensed formations to get to the outside. Right, you can see they got the tight end, they got a wing, they got a slot. And what they want is they got all these bodies within the tackle box. That's going to be huge, right? Look at all the bodies within the tackle box. They're going to motion, hand off to their speedsters to get to the outside because they believe they can win those one-on-ones in space. Right, they hand off right there. Look at them get caught inside. Do a really good job of blocking at the point of attack. Look at the receiver blocking down the field. So important to getting your backs to the outside. And they trust their speedy backs can win these one-on-ones with safeties and DBs, and he does. Nice little stiff arm. See you later. Touchdown. It's going to be so important, too, is the play-action game. They have been so good at it, at a play-action, because they face a lot of man coverage. And because this offense looks the same running the football, it's going to be tough for these DBs not to look into the backfield. You get a lot of that. They're going to get a motion. They're going to look like it's the same type of run plays, but it's a pass. Good fake here. All the DB's eyes in the backfield. You can see they got a couple guys going to the left, but then this receiver coming across the middle deep. And so Kern sees it. Look at him set his feet. Look at the ball right there. Love this catch. Look at that over the shoulder. Beautiful. Again, their ability to condense formations, run to the outside. Play action game going to be so important. It's been a staple all year for this Dobbs Ferry. And against the big front of Bronxville, they're going to have to test it. Mars, who do you got winning Bronxville and Dobbs Ferry and why?
I mean, this is definitely tough, man. I feel like you have Bronxville that has been kind of dominating, almost every team they've played this year, and I think it has a lot to do with their efficiency, their size. They've been able to kind of just been bullying a lot of teams. And I think Dobbs Ferry offensively has been lights out. They've been doing such a great job with their schemes, and they kind of just get people guessing on what they're going to do, but they really don't have the ability to, no team has really been be able to shut them down, especially when they're rolling. And so I feel like both these teams have a lot of evenly matched components. I think Bronxville has that kind of aggression that they can kind of push ahead. And I'm going to go with Bronxville in this game. I think the size advantage that they have and the over aggressiveness on their front seven really is a tough thing to stop. I think Dobbs Ferry offense will make some big plays at times, but I do think it's going to take some time to get there. I think defensively, Dobbs Ferry is going to be tested quite a bit, especially up front. And, I think that they're going to have to rely a lot on that play action pass, and they have proven to been able to do that. But I do think the secondary of Bronxville will be able to at least keep up with some of the skill players that Dobbs Ferry has on the offensive end. And I think that that's what's going to get them a little bit of an advantage here. I'm going to go with Bronxville to win this game.
I agree with you, Mars. I'm going to go with Bronxville too. I have a great respect for Dobbs Ferry. They have skilled players that can match up with anybody. And they have some toughness up front. And that's kind of the way Dobbs Ferry's always been up front. They have some toughness and grit to them. But the size of Bronxville kind of scares me in this one. I feel like they can control the time of possession, control the line of scrimmage, and not give Dobbs Ferry, their skill guys, quarterback Kearns, enough opportunities to come back in this game. I think Dobbs Ferry is going to control it. And I think Bronxville is going to control it, and I think Bronxville is going to win this game. All right. We are moving on to the next game. Appreciate you guys as always. I love the comments.
Hey, I love the banter, man.
I do love the banter.
At the end of the day, man, that what's good about these picks is that if we get them wrong, you have the right to then, call us out on it. And
respectfully.
I think that's the best part. Respectfully. I think that's the good thing is that there have been times that people have taken our clips from our show and used it for either hype videos or used it to kind of make fun of us at times.
Or to motivate them.
At the end of the day, that's the key thing that we're looking for here. So, so we do appreciate all the love, guys.
We do. We appreciate the respectful banter too. But let's go to the next matchup, right? And this is the B matchup. And that's the number 3 seed Sleepy Hollow, who's 9-1, versus number 1 seed Westlake, who is 8-1. These two teams did not play in the regular season. Last time they played was in 2024, where Westlake won 41-7. And let me start with Sleepy Hollow. Mars, this feels like a Cinderella story, doesn't it? They were the biggest surprise, in my opinion, this year in Section 1, no matter what happens in this game. 9 wins in the season is the most that they've had in the last 21-plus years. How they got here, they won 42-26 at Ardsley and won 34-6 versus Pleasantville. Offensively, this is the number 2 offense out of the 22 BCD schools in points scored. They have scored 30-plus points in 7 straight games, including the playoffs. And listen, this offense, it's not a complicated one. They use their tight ends at times. They'll use multiple fullbacks at times. You'll see a ton of condensed formations, what you've seen the last 2 playoff games. And they attack you inside and outside with their running back, Richardson, who has 6 touchdowns over these 2 playoff games and well over 100 yards in both these playoff games because he is big, he can run downhill, and when he gets to that second level, it's see you later. But one shout-out I have to give for Sleepy Hollow is this offensive line. Marsh, you love O-line play? Well, this is one of the best offensive line units in the league with Naughton, Rosario, Chromalis, Almonte, Oquendo. They move people at the point of attack, and it allows Richardson to feast on secondaries because he at times gets untouched for 5 yards. And that's not a guy you want to allow to get 5 yards. But it's not just him, right? Bowen last week made big plays with his legs. Using some of the quarterback counter action has been huge. He had 4 passing touchdowns in the playoffs because guys like Onway, who's one of the best receivers in the league, and guys like Meyer, who's a big playmaker, are getting man coverage, Mars, and they're taking advantage of that. So I'm expecting them. They're going to test Westlake up front against a tough front 7, but they're going to test them trying to run downhill on them. And then also, you're getting man coverage, play action out of that. That has been kind of the remedy or the formula that Sleepy Hollow's been using, and it has been working a ton. But Westlake has given up a couple big run plays last week. And so they want to get Richardson and Bowen into that second level. That's obviously going to be key. Defensively, they're the number 2 defense in points allowed coming into the playoffs, Mars. They did give up some big plays in the passing game last week and a few big run plays, but they had a goal line stand. And what they have done very well, Mars, is force turnovers. They forced 3 turnovers last week. They have 6 turnovers forced in the playoffs. And they have playmakers at each level, guys like Rosario, Estevez, Chromalis, and then secondary-wise, Hudson, Meyer, Onway, Bowen. They have all made plays throughout the season. It all starts with them stopping the run game, though. This is, again, physical offensive line of Westlake, which I'll talk about in a moment, and especially off tackle, right? Because Westlake does a really good job of moving people at the point of attack at the tackle spot, and they can attack off tackle or they can bounce to the outside, and they have speed as well. So defensive backs cannot get lazy with their eyes in this one. It's going to be interesting. And then I lead to Westlake, right? 8 wins in 4 straight years, Mars. This has been some run Westlake has had. That has not happened in over 21 years at Westlake. And how they got here, winning 33-28 versus Pearl River and winning 34-14 versus Byram Hills. Offensively, they were the number 4 offense coming into the playoffs, scored of over 30 points in 8 straight games, and it is about the run game. They only throw around 5 to 8 times a game. And you like O-line play, Mars? Well, they have a great offensive line as well. This is the 2 best offensive lines, in my opinion, in B going at it in this game. Guys like Salage, Negrelli, Hannon, multiple guys on that O-line who can move people at the point of attack. They are one of the best units, just like Sleepy Hollow. But it all starts to me with their quarterback in DiNapoli. 5 rushing touchdowns and 1 passing touchdown in the playoffs. Pippo has been huge for them. He had 3 touchdowns last week, including a huge kick return touchdown. And them running the football, it was nice to see Hud back at the fullback spot as well. He's going to be important. They have multiple backs that can run downhill. But again, attacking the C gap and out with Pippo and DiNapoli and Hud, that is their key. And then play action with guys like Meyer, who had over 100 yards last week. He's a big play guy off of play action. So that's going to be the run. Attacking off tackle, using some of the quarterback power stuff is going to be really interesting. And some of the counter action. Sprinkling with some play action. And this is going to be really interesting. Defensively, they're the number 6 defense in points allowed coming to the playoffs. Last week, not their best performance, right? They gave up 300 yards. They won't face as many pass plays, obviously, against Sleepy that they did last week. But they gave up a big 60-yard touchdown run. They cannot allow Richardson to get to the second level. That is what has been absolutely killer. If Richardson's going untouched for the first 3 yards, it's going to be a long day. So they have to be aggressive in that front 7, attack the line of scrimmage. They have to contact guys like Richardson and Bowen early, or it's going to be a long one. Mars, thoughts on this matchup? And then we have our interview and then film room.
Yeah, first gotta give a shout out to all the chat. Appreciate you guys and love you all.
Much
too.
love, guys.
Much love, guys. So, yeah, I mean, like this is definitely going to be one of those most interesting games. It's definitely Sleepy Hollow is that Cinderella team that surprised everybody, including us, that has made this incredible run all the way through to the section final. And Westlake, you know, they have been playing very well. And they have been kind of on this, top echelon team the last 3 years. They just have been losing in those last games right before they got to the sectionals. But they've been very consistent with how they've been playing as a program. And so this is going to be really interesting. You have a program that has been to the section final or has been in the deep run of the playoffs, and Sleepy, who has been some time since they've been to this stage of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
Absolutely. And our interview for this matchup is one of the stars of these two teams, and that is quarterback and defensive back Nick DiNapoli of Westlake. I got to speak with him for a couple minutes, talk about the season and this upcoming matchup, and I'd like you all to see. Joining us now, he is the quarterback and defensive back for the Westlake football program. We want to welcome to the show Nick DiNapoli. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. And first things first, Nick, you came onto the scene really strong last year in the B, amongst the B League. As a running back, you explode onto the scene. You're one of the leading backs for not just your team, but the entire league. Now you come into this year, you started off as a running back, but was asked to move to the quarterback spot. And you hit the ground running. The running game was still going, but you started to get better and better. Is the passing game as well being pretty efficient? Talk about, for me and the audience, your transition to the quarterback spot. Was that pre-planned? Have you been working during the summer at the quarterback spot? Was this something that you had to pick up on the fly? Talk about your transition to quarterback. What was kind of the biggest hurdles, and how comfortable have you felt at being at the quarterback spot?
Yeah, it was weird at first. I mean, my whole life, like not most people don't know this, but my whole life I played quarterback up until like 9th grade. So I knew some stuff. In the summer I did a little bit of it, but once after the Bronxville game and once I started getting comfortable with it, it was different, but I liked it. It was good.
That's good. And one of the biggest traits you have is obviously running the ball. You're very explosive as a runner, but I thought one of the biggest things you improved on from last year is your ability to run through contact, your balance to run through contact. It takes a lot more people to bring you down as you've gotten stronger from last year to this year. Talk about what has kind of been the biggest growth for you from last year to this year as a runner.
Well, over the off season, just working hard in the gym, getting bigger, obviously, and then really just like knowing the game well, like knowing, like now that like it's my second year starting on the offense, I know what my teammates are doing. I know like how they're blocking. I know how to like follow the block. So more experience, definitely.
Now let's talk about this season. I mean, you guys, outside of one loss, have won and done in most of the season in dominant fashion, running the ball very well, putting up a ton of points, defensively swarming to the ball. Talk to me about what makes this group so special on the offensive side and on the defensive side.
I mean, both sides, we just have so much depth. Like it's not just one or two people like making plays. Offensively, we have a few backs. As you know, we could just make a lot of plays. We have amazing offensive line. Probably, I think, is the best offensive line, at least in Class B. And then defense, we're just all aggressive. We all swarm to the ball and gang tackle.
Let's talk about this upcoming matchup, right? Against another team, Sleepy Hollow, only one loss. And, when you watch tape on this team, you play on both sides of the ball, Nick. You're an important two-way player. Talk to me about what you see from Sleepy Hollow, what they do well on the offensive side, and what they do well on the defensive side.
Offensively, they're obviously very explosive. They have big, like good backs, receivers. So they're explosive on the offensive side, definitely. And defense, they're definitely like a good defensive team. I'd say they're pretty aggressive. So yeah.
Yep. Last question I have for you, Nick. What can you guys do this weekend to give yourself the best opportunity to win and become champions?
Just really doing what we've done all season. We know what to do. Coach puts us in a good situation to win, gives us a great game plan every week. So really just we know what to do, just executing and, defensively swarming to the ball, obviously offensively doing our jobs and putting up points.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nick, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Nick, for joining the show. Mars, we now move to the film room, and I want to look at both these offenses, Sleepy Hollow offense and the Westlake offense, both with a ton of backs, ton of explosiveness, and kind of give you guys a little preview on what we can expect to see for this upcoming matchup. And let me pull up that huddle real quick. And then I realized, how much people were giving Mars love. They weren't necessarily giving me love. So a little upset about that. I see a comment.
They just know what's real. They just know what's real. That's what it is. They just know who's the OG here.
But let's just start again with our film room, and I want to start with Sleepy Hollow. And again, it's not a very complicated thing that what they do, but they do it very well. And you can see they bring out their tight end, they'll bring in a fullback, and they'll run inside and outside with Richardson. And just again, Richardson is an absolute stud. But I want to give a shout out to this offensive line. You're going to see down blocks here. They're going to get a kick out and then led by this fullback. But I just want you to look at the front. I know it's not a sexy thing, but look at the front and look at the movement that they get. Look at the drive. Again, getting a seal here, a beautiful kick out here, head on the inside. And they got Richardson with a lane. And you get this young man a lane, it's going to be a long night for your defense. But I love one of the best offensive line movements, moving people at the point of attack, hitting this guy in the inside, head on the inside on the kick out. Again, being technically sound and getting Richardson no touches. Look at that cut right there. And then sayonara. He is untouched, Mars. For the first 3 yards, it's a long day for your defense. He takes it to the house. He's got that speed to break it open. But it's not just Richardson, right? He's great. But they also got a quarterback who run too, right? They got the quarterback in the back. You see you got another tight end, another fullback here. And they're going to run a quarterback counter this time, right? Same exact play practically. They're going to pull the guard. Fullback's going to lead. But they're going to fake it to Richardson. And because of Richardson's speed, his explosiveness, he draws a ton of attention, right? Opens things up. You can see, watch these linebackers. Both stepping in the wrong direction. The middle linebacker's kind of being frozen here. But again, at the point of attack, look at this offensive line moving people. Driving people up. Again, sealed away. No one's touched. Quarterback explodes through that hole, and no one's touched. Another 20-plus yard run. This offensive line is beating people up. I love watching good O-line play. And obviously, the ability to run the ball and move people has opened things up in the passing game. You can see another formation with a tight end, with a wing this time, a fullback, condensed formation, but they're going to throw out of it. Because these running backs draw so much attention, you're going to see they're going to run a tight end on a drag, and this outside receiver, Onway, one of the best in the business, one-on-one coverage. right? So there's the fake. You can see these linebackers just shoot up. And then practically you have two guys wide open. Tight end's wide open, and you're about to see the wide receiver come wide open because this rush attack so potent that it draws so much attention. It'll allow these one-on-one opportunities. And that's against a very good corner, too. The Hanway just gets wide open there for the touchdown. Let's talk about Westlake. Yeah, they don't throw a lot, but they run the ball very well, too. And they'll give you some of these tackle over formations, and they'll beat you at the point of attack with that O-line play as well. Really strong unit. You can see you got pretty much a tackle over acting as a tight end. And this guy, DiNapoli, has been a workhorse all year. And you're going to see, not very complicated here. They're going to fake an outside run, and quarterback's going to keep it on this power. But look at the point of attack. Look at how they move these guys at the point of attack. You're going to get a kick out, get this guard pulling across. Watch the execution here. Boom. Love that kick out right there. Love this guard getting to the second level, just driving that defender. Look at the movement. Look at the pancake. Look at the guys getting driven at the point of attack. And Nick Napoli does a good job of following his blockers, exploding through that line of scrimmage. Look at that cut. Getting big chunk plays. Beautiful execution up front. Great run in the ball, leading to a touchdown, leading to a big play that ended up leading to a touchdown. But again, not just Nick here. And you can see they're going to have a tight end to the right on, again, tackle over. And then they have a wing on the left side. And they're going to motion, just similar. Again, they started with three backs on the previous play. They're going to motion to three backs. And they're going to hand it off to this back. But again, watch the point of attack. They motion, they hand it to him. And again, you're going to get a kick out, guard pull, but look at the point of attack. Look at the movement here. Get another pancake, a guy getting to that second level. And now you get a good running back, one-on-one in the hole. They win this majority of the time. There he does. It just rolls right by him. Lead to another big chunk play. What's so going to be important in this one is off of the play action as well. Again, you can run the ball very effectively, but you got to keep a defense honest. And again, you can see another condensed formation. They're going to get a motion, but this time they're going to fake it. You see a guy like Meyer running up the seam. Look at all the secondary guys, eyes in the backfield. Get a good fake, wide open, deliver it to him. They're going to have to hit on a couple of these to keep that Sleepy Hollow defense that's very aggressive honest. I'm excited to see Mars. Does the Cinderella story have a happy ending, or does Westlake come out on top? Who you got winning and why?
I mean, both these teams are evenly matched, especially when you look at how both offenses have been performing. I think like they're very different offenses, mind you. Sleepy Hollow obviously is more of that, they're going to mix it up with a lot of different things, and they have this speed that can kind of kill you, especially if you give any sort of cushion at all. And they try to get you with these, speed outside type of runs, or even these these option runs, like speed option, or trying to have you play disciplined football at times to try to keep all these different playmakers in the box. While we look at Westlake, they're going to go back to their kind of old school offense in a way. Not saying go back to the wing tee back, but they have some variants of that. That is run heavy offense that really does rely on their offensive line to really get on their blocks and really stay key on that. But I will say this. I have been going against Sleepy Hollow the last few weeks, and every time I did, Sleepy Hollow has been kind of embarrassing.
You only did once.
My picks. No, well, I'm saying they've embarrassed me. I said I've went against Sleepy, I believe, the last, it was the last week I went against them, and they straight up embarrassed my pick. And I to the point where I kind of feel as if I pick against them again, there's a chance that they might embarrass me again. And I think if Sleepy Hollow does play to the maximum of their ability, they limit the mistakes offensively and defensively. They are, I think, one of the best teams in B all around. And they have the talent, they have the athletes, they have the discipline of the offensive line. And I think I'm going to go with Sleepy Hollow to win this game, to capitalize on their Cinderella story and to win the section title.
Listen, I said it in a previous show. I think if Sleepy Hollow plays its best, they are the best team in B. However, in the preseason, Mars, do you know who I picked to win B the entire thing? I picked Westlake. I can't go on my pick this time. I'm going with Westlake. I love the Cinderella story of Sleepy Hollow. I love some of the athletes they play, and I love their O-line play. But Westlake also has one of the best offensive linemen, and they've been here before a couple years ago. So this is a team that has, again, the experience from a coaching standpoint that have been here. They have some good athletes, good O-line play. I love this matchup. Would not shock me if Sleepy Hollow wins this. Absolutely not. They have the talent to absolutely do it. But I have a feeling the veteran team in Westlake pulls it off in a close one. I'm going to go Westlake. And maybe I'm going to be the cornball this week. Or maybe I'll be eating corn this week. We'll see what happens. We'll be seeing what happens. But with that, we go to our main event. And if I can remember to put up the sign, there we go. And that is the AA matchup. No, Society, we aren't doing a show next week. On Patreon, I might do a reaction to the games, give my final thoughts on the season. We'll be at the games, too. So we're going to give some our thoughts at the game, too. Would love for you guys to interact with us. We love talking to the audience. But let's go to our main event, and that is the AA matchup. Number 2 seed Mamaroneck, who is 9-1, versus the number 1 seed John Jay East Fishkill, who is 10-0. These two teams played each other in week 6, where John Jay won at Mamaroneck 20-14 in overtime. It was a fantastic game, lived up to the hype. And historically, John Jay is 6-2 in this series, dating back to 2004, winning the last 2 matchups. Mamaroneck won its last matchup in this game in 2023. And when I look at these two teams, Mars, for Mamaroneck, they reached the section finals in 3 out of the last 4 years. Getting to this game, they won 54-20 versus the defending champs in North Rockland, as well as 31-0 versus New Rochelle. And for Mamaroneck, offensively, there have been times that it's been up and down. They came into the playoffs 8th in points scored, but the run game has really picked up in the playoffs. This offensive line is going to have its handfuls. John Jay East Fishkill is not easy, to run against. They got playmakers in their front 7. But running back Leibowitz has over 140 yards rushing in back-to-back games and 7 touchdowns in its last 2 games. But against John Jay, I think they had 45 yards rushing. They have to be better in the run game this time around. Cooper is another back who has made big plays in here. So running the ball is going to be hit and miss. It's not going to be consistent running downhill. So the big bonus is going to be on their quarterback in Kelly, in my opinion, as well. This has got to be the moment for him. If they're going to win a section title, he's got to make big plays with his arm and his legs. Last time, he helped them get down the field multiple times, especially scoring a touchdown to help tie it. But there were some missed opportunities throwing down the field. They did not capitalize in their last matchup. Defensively, Mars Mamaroneck, the number 1 defense in points allowed coming into the playoffs in AA. They have not allowed more than 20 points in a game this year, but they have to be a lot better against the downhill power running game and condensed formations that John Jay gave them the first time. They were better in the second half in their first matchup but in the first half, they were taking body shots, and John Jay was wearing down Mamaroneck defensively. They were getting pushed at the point of attack, and their linebackers were getting caught in the mesh with the offensive line. John Jay did a really good job of getting their offensive linemen and fullbacks to the linebacker level, and the running backs were running downhill physically. And they were taking chunks 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, and they'll break off a 12-yarder. Right, so they were making plays, wearing down the defense, and this defensive front 7 has to be better with guys like Prevost, D'Erico, Perez, Jacobson, because if they can get John Jay into its spread game, right, get him into 2nd and long or 3rd and medium, that's when this Mamaroneck team can play games. They can rush 3 and bring an outside linebacker, rush 3, bring an inside linebacker, and this team can get after you. They are really good at rushing the passer, and they can force turnovers. They have forced 5 turnovers in the playoffs this year. I mentioned the guys in the front 7, but guys like Alker and Alperitz and Matlow have made plays in the back end. And they forced a couple turnovers the last time they played to get them back in the game. Mars, they had a pick 6 by Alker. They were getting pressure at the quarterback spot. They forced, I believe, 2 interceptions against John Jay in that second half. So that's the big difference. If they're strong against the run, allow this secondary and that pass rush to get after John Jay when they go into their spread stuff. Then I go to John Jay. 10 wins coming into this game, Mars, most in a season in the last 21 plus years. The last section title they've had appearance was in 2018. To get here, they won 28-14 versus Scarsdale and 14-6 versus Yonkers Forest. And I mentioned the number 1 defense in Mamaroneck. Well, John Jay had the number 1 offense coming into the playoffs in AA. At times, they've struggled with turnovers the last 2 weeks. But last week, the 2 weeks prior to last week, they've struggled with some turnovers. But last week they played a cleaner game, and quarterback Lawrence was really strong last week. He had 200 yards passing, 3 total touchdowns, made some key throws down the field needed to pull away in that game. and making plays to guys like Nate Johnson and Nick Procaccino, who had receiving touchdowns. But it starts with the run game and that power running game. Those condensed formations, can they challenge Mamaroneck a second time at the point of attack, run downhill, control the time possession like they did the first time around? Running with Safuto, running with Calcagni, because it opens up that play action game where that's where they're absolute best. The screen game, the crossers out of the condensed formations, and forcing the secondary. Do they want to take away the tight end, which will leave the open downhill throws to guys like Burko and Nate Johnson? Or do they play back and allow those crossers of the tight end group to make plays for them? So that's going to be a key. It all starts with running the football. Defensively, there's the number 2 defense in points allowed. They've allowed 14 or less in 4 out of the 5 previous games. And it starts for them, I mentioned, stopping the run. They have playmakers in that front 7. Linebacker for Olivio has been really good all year with guys like Scavino and Procaccino at the defensive line. And these guys have active safeties, guys who are not afraid to come up for the run. And at times, they'll be super aggressive, which will leave play action open at times. But guys like Smith and Calcagni and Alomar have been big playmakers in that back end. Mars, thoughts on this matchup? We got the interview and our last pick of the year.
I mean, man, this is I was thinking about this before, but of all the teams and the matchups that we've been talking about, I feel like this is the most evenly matched of the matchups. Not only did these teams, play earlier in the season, but they played and the game was had finished in overtime. Not even the Rice Somers game finished in overtime. It was a close game, don't get me wrong, but this was as close as it can get.
It lived up to the hype.
And it lived up to the hype. It was like when you call those ESPN Instant Classic games. So, I will say that this is definitely going to be one of the most interesting matchups, and it's that prime time Saturday night game. So, it's going to be interesting to watch.
And potentially in the rain, which helps those 2 defenses, that's for sure. But with that, let's talk about our interview for this matchup. And it's one of the key cogs of this team, and that is tight end and defensive end Nick Procaccino, John J. East Fishkill, one of the standout players for the team. Spoke with him for a couple minutes to talk about the season and this upcoming matchup, and I'd like you all to see. Joining us now, he is the tight end and defensive end for the John J. East Fishkill football program. We want to welcome to the show Nick Procaccino. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
And listen, Nick, first things first, I'd like to talk a little bit about you and have the audience know a little bit about you. I heard that football is kind of a new sport for you. I know you're a big baseball guy, and you've only been playing football a couple years. So can you explain to me and the audience how you started football, why you chose football? And I know John J. Fishkill is really excited that you chose football. But explain to me how football got started, your feelings of kind of this being a new sport to you. How has it been for you? And give me the story.
So growing up, a lot of my friends played football, and I've always been a big football fan, big Giants fan, but I always played baseball and basketball, so I never found the time for it. And so once I started getting into high school after 8th grade, I was like, I think I want to play. So freshman year, I decided to play, but I ended up getting really sick in that summer, and I missed my freshman year.
Mhm.
So sophomore year was really my first year playing, and I picked it up pretty fast, and ever since then, it's been great.
Yeah, and John J. Fishkill is excited that you tried it and continued with it, obviously, with the success that you've had. And let's just talk about, you mentioned sophomore being your first year. Now you're a senior, and you've kind of grown as a player every year and have been more and more impactful on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So explain to me your growth from last year to this year. What has kind of been your biggest strength? What has kind of been the reason for your biggest improvements?
Last year I was mainly a defensive player, and which I feel like offense I enjoy more. I love catching balls, love blocking. And last year I played a lot on offense, but they really used me as a blocking guy. So being more involved in the pass game, I feel like that's been my biggest growth since last year, catching passes and getting yards.
And it obviously has. And then that leads to kind of this season. You guys are undefeated. And for you, what is kind of, for those that might not know a ton of John J. East Fishkill, I watch a ton, so I know your guys' strength. But explain to me, what makes this group so special on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball?
We're a team full of seniors. Most of the kids on our team last year saw playing time last year, and last year wasn't a great year. So I think building off last year, everyone was hungry this year, and wanted to make sure that we could make this the best season we could. And with the good group of seniors we have, I think we've done that pretty well.
The last couple weeks of the year, you guys played a ton of close games. right? It was close against Mamaroneck, close against Clarkstown South, close against your first round matchup in Yonkers Forest. Last week was another close matchup playing against a gritty Scarsdale team, but you guys won by 2 touchdowns by the end. Talk about what these kind of close games and kind of how has that taught you guys to win these close games heading into probably the most important game, which is the championship this week?
I think we built it off last year. So instead of this year, we had a lot of close games and we won them all. Last year, we had a lot of close games and we lost them all. So I think that experience, once the games get tight, I think like we dig deep and we're like, all right, we can't let what happened last year. Well, that experience of losing has really driven us to keep winning.
Now let's talk about this upcoming matchup. You've played this team before, Mamaroneck. Their only loss of the year is against you guys in overtime. And so when you look at Mamaroneck, and you're a two-way player, so I'd like to get your thoughts on both sides of the ball. What does Mamaroneck do well on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball?
On the defensive side of the ball, I think they're probably one of the most tough teams we've played against this year. Last game, we struggled throwing the ball, hadn't had great success running the ball in that second half. But in that first half, we really succeeded running the ball, running the jet sweeps, and then they kind of adjust in the second half. So this upcoming week, we really gotta dig deep and focus on what we did in that first half. And then on the defense, on their offensive side of the ball, they got a pretty quick quarterback. Their offensive line's pretty good, but I think our interior is going to hold up pretty well, and we'll be able to handle them.
Well, that's my last question that I wanted to ask you was, what can you guys do to give yourself an opportunity to be champions and win this weekend?
Coming to this game, John Jay hasn't been to a section championship since 2018, and
Yeah.
we know they've been there three of the past 4 years. So I think not all of us not having not been there before, we're really gonna want it. We're really gonna want it bad right now. And like our defense played great last game. We just have to repeat that and improve on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nick, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for joining the show. And let's now move to our film room and then our final picks. And one thing I want to focus on is looking at Mamaroneck's defense in their last matchup. Some things that really picked up, especially in the second half for them. And then looking at John Jay's offense. One of the things that worked running the football against Mamaroneck, and then this offense that we've seen last week in the playoffs. So our last film room of the year, guys. Kind of crazy if you think about it.
Get the tears flowing.
Yeah, let the tears flow. But again, I just want to start off. Let's start with Mamaroneck. And defensively in the first half, they really struggled looking at this formation right here, right? Condensed formations, couple fullbacks, tailback. But in the second half, they really picked things up, and they did a better job of not getting moved so easily at the point of attack, and these linebackers taking better angles to the ball and making tackles in the hole. And you watch here, again, they have multiple guys near the line of scrimmage, and they're just running power football here. But a big difference that you'll see here is that they do a much better job of not getting moved at the point of attack, especially in that second half. And look at these linebackers attack, right? They read it, they attack it, they're not waiting. And you could see, look at the linebacker meet that fullback in the hole right there. Really strong attack here, which doesn't allow to get pushed off his spot. Allows the backside linebacker to undercut this and make the tackle. And you see this defense swarm, right? Multiple guys, again, really good tackle in the hole right there. This defense, multiple bodies near it. They were much better in the second half of getting guys to the ball, and these linebackers attacking downhill, getting off blocks, not getting pushed off their spot. Because again, if they're strong, like they were in the second half in the run game, it's going to force John Jay to be in those second and longs, third and mediums. And that's when this pass rush can really make some noise. That's what they've been good at all year. They'll rush three and then bring an outside guy, rush three and bring an inside guy. And in this particular moment, they're going to bring an outside guy. Right? You can see here comes the outside guy right here, and they got some D linemen who can get after it. Right? So they take away Lawrence's first read. This pass rush will get to the ball. They do that. He's trying to look to his left, trying to tack down the field. They do a good job of taking away the first read. Even on the underneath, they do a good job here. You got two bodies right here. Now allow that defensive line. They get after the quarterback, gets the sack. These guys can really go hunting. Here's another example. Getting into that spread. This time they're going to bring an inside linebacker. Right? Offensively, they're going to try to throw a comeback here on the left side, on the top. But the problem is, when you can create pressure, that's when mistakes happen. And so as the ball gets snapped, Quarterback seeing, hey, this guy's shoulders are facing inward. He might be running with this guy up the seam. So this underneath, this comeback route is probably going to be open. But he actually breaks off of this inside guy and goes underneath. But what really makes this play is the defensive line. Look at him get pressure right here. Quarterback's trying to throw the underneath. If he gets enough on it, he probably completes it or throws an incompletion. But because of this pressure, can't fully step into the throw. And because of that, guy underneath undercuts it, not enough arm. And this is one of the biggest plays of this game to get Mamaroneck back in it, this pick six. Again, getting John Jay out of those condensed formations into the spread, allowing for their defensive line to get after it. But let me just show you from the John Jay side. In that first half, they ran with power, man. They gave in these condensed formations. And watch them move people at the point of attack. You're going to get down blocks. They're going to get blockers at the second level. Guys pulling. But look at that movement right there. Look at that seal. And then right at the linebacker spot, backside linebacker's nowhere to be found. He gets sealed off. Really good contact at the point of attack. And allows your running back to attack this secondary. And they ran with guys like Cal Cogney with physicality. Look at this. Boom. And they were giving body shot, 5 yards here, 4 yards here. And then it ends up breaking to 12 yards. And they can wear down a defense. What I like about John Jay, too, is they have some nice wrinkles. You saw last week, they came out with this condensed formation similar to what you saw against Mamaroneck, and they'll run pass out of it, play action. Right? And against Mamaroneck, they ran a similar play, but had a little wrinkle here. This running back, instead of going through the line up the field, he was running to the outside to the flat. Right? So this time they'll give you a little different wrinkle. And I love John Jay's creativity out of some of these condensed formations. Right? Those shows run, but they're going to run play action. Good play action there. Running back untouched. And Lawrence was really good. Look at the good base here. Good job out of the offensive line. Give him a clean pocket. And look at him deliver that beautiful ball right there. Leads to a huge play that ends up being a touchdown. Finally, the last thing I wanted to show is, again, these condensed formations and play action out of it. John Jay's been so good at it all year. They got a single receiver here, bunched to the left. And you're going to see them do crossers with a backside post. Right? And again, focusing in on how the defense is going to play. If this safety is going to stay over the top, trying to take away the post, they'll attack this crosser. If the safety jumps up for the tight end, then you know you got one-on-one coverage on that post. And so as this play, fake pitch, he sees the safety stay over the top. They're trying to double team, take away that long touchdown pass. Okay, that means the tight end's one-on-one with your linebacker. Again, good clean pocket. Look at the touch on that one. Right over. Nick Procaccino takes it to the house. Mars, another heavyweight fight. Mamaroneck, John Jay, both these teams. Mamaroneck looking for its first section title. John Jay looking for his first one in a long time as well. Who wins and why?
This is definitely one of the tougher games that I had to pick for tonight. And you know, you already mentioned the Battle of the Titans, the Hercules versus Hades type of matchup. And, you got these two teams, these programs that already played each other early in the season or earlier in the season, and it was a battle. Right, it was a game that you almost kind of feel left and missed out on if you didn't get to watch it. It was like you got to go turn back the tape and watch that game if you didn't get to see it for yourself. And, I think Mamaroneck defensively has been really impressive. They really have stepped it up. Their front seven is extremely tough to play against, and they have been able to kind of stuff teams and make life difficult for anybody, especially when trying to run the ball. And their offense has had some struggles, right? They've been getting better, and it feels as if their playoff version of themselves has really been turning up the tune or turning up the knob. But I will say John Jay, and I've said this a few weeks ago. We had a question about the most overall strongest team, yep. The most consistent team. And I said John Jay's Fishkill, in my opinion, was probably the most overall when they're playing at their peak, that they are probably the most dangerous team to play against. And I think because of the way that they've been playing, where they have a little bit of luck on their side, they have the skill guys that can get them going whenever there is an issue. Their momentum has been pushing them forward. Their offensive line has been really tough to play against. Their defense has been lights out. I'm going to go with John Jay's Fishkill. I think they're going to have the luck on their side alongside with their discipline and their ability to kind of just win the little matches. The adversity that they face and the ability for them to win in those close games is really important. They're going to go, I think, a perfect season, win the game and win the section title. The last time they won was in 2018.
Last time they
I mean,
appeared
this
was
is one of those
2018. Last time they won, I think I have to look back. I don't
Was
remember.
it
Let me check in
earlier?
the chat.
Yeah, they went. Yeah, they went in 2018, but then they won. They won before that.
Yep.
I know it was a few years before that. The last time they won, but I'm gonna go with John Gianfisco. I think that they're gonna have that perfect season. The way that they've been playing is lights out, and I think they're gonna win this title.
This one again really tough for me as well. I went back and forth on this all day, but at the end for me, I feel like this is the key moment for Mamaroneck. They have been to the section title 3 of the last 4 years. It feels like it's got to be the time this year. I'm going to go with Mamaroneck, not because I don't believe John J. Fishkill has won on the road, by the way. That's also very impressive. They can win multiple ways. 2014 is the last time. And I just have a great respect for the coaching and the players that John J. Fishkill have put together this year, winning a ton of close games. But I just love the way Mamaroneck's defense is. And I feel if they can just hit on a couple of those pass plays that they didn't hit last time, I thought they were going to pull the upset. They had the opportunity, and I think this time around, they will pull off the upset. But to me, love both these defenses. I really do. This is great. And I love the play action game that John Jay, but Mamaroneck's ability to run the ball the last couple of weeks has been really impressive. And I think they're going to have some success running the ball and make enough plays in the passing game. I think Mamaroneck finally gets that section title. Well, guys, that was our show. I just want to come out and just say this for all the teams. First off, number one, good luck to all the teams and the coaches battling this weekend. Me and Mars both have experience as coaches going to section titles, going to championships and losing, going to championships and winning. Right? We've been at the highest of highs, lowest of lows. Even me as a player, I have on the unfortunate experience of going to a championship and losing. At the end of the day, there can only be one winner and loser. And I won't sugarcoat it for the losing team that, hey, at the end of the day, you competed. I know winning really matters for a lot of people. But one thing I will give a message, and I'll leave this, Mars, before we check out, is that the most important thing is that you just give everything you have. Right? That's the most important thing, is give everything you have, that at the end of the day, whether you're winning or losing, there's no regrets for it. And so that's going to be probably the key message that I have, is just give whatever you have. There's going to be mistakes during the game. There's going to be high moments, low moments during the game. But if you have given everything you have, then you can sleep at night, right? You gave everything to your team, to your coaches, and to yourself. And so that's my message to the players going into this. I know it's tough to say soak it all in because you're just so focused, laser focused in. I get that. But just give everything you have. And no matter what it is, let the cards lay where they are. And don't go out with regrets, at least from an effort standpoint. Don't go out with regrets. Mars, last thoughts, any messages as we close our show for the year? Not our content, because we still have All-Star and awards, but last thoughts before I close things out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone that this season has been a fun one, and whether you made it to the section title or not, you should be proud of what you were able to accomplish in your season. Definitely some heartbreak, some positives, but the most important thing is that you have to give everything you have and leave it on the field. And like you said before, all those teams playing the section title, we give you the best of luck, and we will be watching. We will be there, so make sure that you do everything you can to get your team that win, and we'll be there to see how that ends up. But Fam Sports New York is always around. We're always the ones that will give you the takes for the lifetime. I think we've been quoted more than anybody. I think we lead the section in being quotes on these hype videos. Compared to a lot of other media sources out there, we're probably the youngest of all of them combined. So I gotta say we've been able to at least.
Man, they're not that old.
Some of them are a little old. I don't even want to name names here, but there's some of them are out there pretty old. But yeah, we've been going at it. This is a fun season, so I'm looking forward to seeing how these games end up. We will be at the sectional, so you guys will see us probably on the sideline.
Yep.
Trying to bundle up in our sweatshirts. So it's been great, man.
Yeah, and I just want to again thank Mars for being a part of the show. Thank our sponsors and thank all of you once again. And just know that I give everything I have during this week. This is a side thing for us. We both work. We both do a bunch of other stuff, and we try to give you guys the best content that we can. And I just want to give a special thanks to you guys for being a part of this show. Again, this is not the end of our content and not the end of our road, but every year we evaluate. There's never a guarantee tomorrow. So thank you guys. As always, hope you guys enjoy this weekend's football. We will be there to enjoy it as well. And we will see you all very soon.